Hey robot makers, hope you're having a good day so far. We just turn that volume down for a second because we've got all the notifications chiming in there. So, do you want to see a steampunk companion robot that can tweet photos with a hand gesture? Then this show is for you. Let's dive straight in. My name's Kevin. Come with me as we build robots, bring them to life with code, and have a fantastic amount of fun along the way. Okay, let's get straight into it today, shall we? So yes, this is all about Bubo-2T, which is the steampunk robot I've been working on over the past couple of weeks. I can't wait to show you this. So today we're going to have a bit of a show and tell. I'm going to show you some little bits and pieces about how it all fits together, and we'll have a bit of a play with it as well. And there's just some really, really cool things I just can't wait to show you about this whole idea. So I'm going to talk you through the inspiration behind Bubo-2T. I'm going to show you some machine learning stuff, which is just ridiculously, it's just so much fun. You'll see it and you'll be like, I'm installing this right away and playing with it. So we can do hand and finger recognition on Raspberry Pi straight out of the box. It's just so much fun. We're going to have a quick overview of how to install and set up on a Raspberry Pi, like really, really quick. It's not going to go too deep into that bit today. I'm going to have a demo of how to do this hand gestures, and we're also going to demo how to tweet out pictures as well. And then also we've got the live stream, so the Q&A at the end of the show. So I don't think there's too much to go through on the mailbox yet. I've got lots of secret stuff I can't talk about, but that's probably for later videos. Okay, so let's get over to the next slide. So one of the first inspirations I had for this, when you see films when you're a kid, some films sort of stick with you, and sometimes you see them and before like a genre has even formed, you've identified these things as being something cool that you want to learn more about or even build your own. And one of these was Tick-Tock from not the social media network, but Tick-Tock, the robot from Return to Oz. This is really quite an old film now. It must be about 30 years old, something like that. And this was like a follow-up to the original Wizard of Oz. And you know, what she called the main character in the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy. She comes back to Oz, and the Tin Man has been changed into this sort of strange steampunk style robot that's called Tick-Tock. And this was one of these sort of robots that stuck with me for quite a while. I love the sort of design of it. It's got like this huge round metallic looking, I mean, what is that sort of brass looking thing with all these rivets down it, and he's got a little hat as well, and his moustache sort of moves about and his eyes sort of open and close, and it's just one of those beautiful designs. And Adam Savage was I think he did a show on this on Tested not so long ago about the actual prop that was used in the film. I think it's for auction. So this is one of the things that inspired me when I was thinking about making my own companion robot. So Bubo is based on this clockwork robot from Clash of the Titans, and we'll have a look at this in a second. So Clash of the Titans, I think, was one of the last films of that kind of genre of like Sinbad the Sailor and what was the other ones that was there? What else was there? There was Sinbad the Sailor. There was I can't remember now. There was a whole bunch of these. There was the one where the sort of skeletons pop up out of the ground and they sort of start moving around. That was Ray Harryhausen, and he sort of animated the robot, which we're going to look at shortly, from Clash of the Titans. And the other inspiration was the Nautilus from the film 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. We'll have a look at that in a second as well. So what Bubo-2T actually is, it's a Raspberry Pi 4 powered robot. So inside its brain, it has a Raspberry Pi 4. It also has a Raspberry Pi Pico for doing things. Let me just grab this. So I've got these. These are going to be its eyes. At the moment, they're just sort of loose. And it's just a Raspberry Pi Pico. One without the Wi-Fi, simply because it can communicate to the Raspberry Pi 4. And the reason I decided to sort of split these out, it's just easier. These things just work well on MicroPython, so that's what I've stuck with for that. And it's sort of, I know how to do this, so why make something more complicated? This is already a complicated build as it is. So Raspberry Pi 4 with a Raspberry Pi Pico alongside, communicating over UART. We've done that on some projects before, so that'll be nice and simple. We're then going to make it so that you can take a photograph. So the idea is when I'm at Maker Central in May, I'll have this robot either mounted on my shoulder with that shoulder harness that I just showed in a second ago, or I'll be just sort of carrying it around. And if people sort of do a peace sign or some combination of hand gestures, the robot will count down, you'll see its eyes sort of tick down, and then it'll take a picture, it'll flash, and then it'll tweet that picture out. So I've been breaking down what are all the different tasks, what all the different pieces of code and hardware I need to make this happen. So the toot part of Bubo is it can toot out to Mastodon, and it can also tweet to Twitter as well. So we're going to be having a look at how to do that today. So there's a piece of software that's called CV Zone, Computer Vision Zone, and it just makes this a piece of cake. So that's going to work out all the hand gestures. We're going to have a play with it in a minute. It's so cool. And then Twitter. There's a thing about Twitter. If you tweeted the exact same text, like here's a picture, every single time somebody did this as I'm walking around, after about 3 or 4 pictures with the same text, Twitter would actually block any further messages because it thinks you're accidentally sending the same message again and again. So I've created some code that will randomize the message that it will send in the body of the tweet. So we can have a look at how to do that too. Again, this is really simple and really fun. So yes, Nautilus. This is one of the things created by Harper Goff for Disney, 1954, for the film 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is the Jules Verne novel. And yeah, he was saying he wanted this to be sort of like an alligator, so it's under the water. You can just see its green eyes glowing there. And again, I love the sort of riveted effect of this. I love the sort of what we now call steampunk. I love that sort of Victorian style futuristic machines. So yes, it looks a bit like an alligator and also shark. It's got these sort of menacing fins all the way around it. It's the rivets and the look of the metal that particularly struck me about this one, and also those eyes. That's something that sort of clearly left an indelible effect on me. So this is Bubo. This is from the Clash of the Titans film, and it was a clockwork owl sent by the gods to assist the hero on his journey. And it was animated by, like I said, Ray Harryhausen, and it also has that steampunk vibe. It's made of, it looks like a metal sort of finish to it, sort of a brass and steel perhaps. And this was steampunk way before that term was coined by K.W. Jeter. So again, this robot, it did a couple of different things. Its eyes would move around. I think the red eyes didn't actually glow or anything. They were just like little rubies. Its beak opened up and down, and its head and its wings flapped. Its head moved left and right, its wings flapped. So I've not put any servos in mine yet to do any of that kind of moving its head or flapping any wings. He hasn't got any wings just yet, but maybe on version 2. So this was the original render that I did for Bubo-2T. I designed all this in a Fusion 360, and I started out just with my pad and paper, wherever I put that, and I just sort of drew out what I wanted this thing to actually look like. I don't think I've got those to hand, actually. And then I went straight into Fusion and started outlining the shape. I knew I was going to revolve this round to make a nice sort of rounded shape that isn't more like an egg shape than a sphere. And the spherical look is influenced by Tick-Tock. The eyes are influenced by the Nautilus, and then the Bubo, obviously it's an owl. I love the little beak there. May also be a bit of a Mystery Science Theater 3000 in there, possibly a bit of Furby as well, but maybe not so much of that. Okay, so this is my new wearable robot. Like I said, I'm going to be wearing this or carrying it at the Maker Central in May 20, I think it's on the 13th and 14th of this year, 2023. And that's at the Birmingham NEC, the National Exhibition Centre. So some of the features, and I literally wrote these out as these are the things I want this robot to do. So I wanted his mouth to open and close. I wanted his eyelids to open and close. And you can really go to town on how much articulation you want. Do you want the top eyelid and the bottom eyelid to be independent, so you can do like looking up, looking down, or frowning and all that kind of stuff? Do you want them to be just sort of all on the same thing, so they all open and close at the same time, or do you want them independent? So I've gone for a kind of independent left and right, but they're either open or closed on a servo. And we had a look at the mechanism for that last week. The other thing I wanted it to have was some RGB LED neopixels around the eyes, so I could do some interesting effects with that. And the cyber glasses I created a while back had exactly that. So these are the oops. I've not dropped it. These are the eyes that I've got ready to go. And they're just running a piece of code that will cycle through. You probably can't really see the colours on this, but yeah, they're sort of changing colour. Maybe if I hold my hand up there, you can see the glow that's in my hand there. It's sort of a pink colour there at the moment. If I do it like that, maybe. And then they'll cycle around and do all different kind of effects. But the idea there is I want them to be able to sort of count down like a clock when it's taking the picture, so people who are looking at it know when the picture is going to take, and then it'll flash white to say that it's taken the picture. And then behind the eye, I've got a Raspberry Pi camera module, such as this one here. This one is I think this is the standard one, but I've got the wide one. So this one you can see here is the Raspberry Pi camera module 3. This is just on a 0 at the moment. I don't think a 0 is probably powerful enough to do what I want to do with the hand gesture detection stuff, but it can probably handle everything else. So that's going to be behind the eye, also in the with the neopixels around it, and then the eyelids closing open and closing over that. So there's quite a lot going on there. And then it will be able to tweet or toot or both based on the gesture from the person who's looking at it. We're going to have a look at this in a second. It's so cool. So setting up a CV zone on a Raspberry Pi is very, very simple. So I've actually detailed how to do this. If you go to that link there, which is just my GitHub repository and Bubo-2T, you'll be able to see the code there and walk through this. But essentially, you just do pip install CV zone, and then you do pip install media pipe. That's just like an extra bit. And then there does seem to be an issue with using OpenCV or CV Zone on a Raspberry Pi that's got the new libcamera 2 module installed, which is the latest version. So I'm using the latest and greatest version of Raspberry Pi OS on a 64-bit processor, using the 64-bit version of the OS. And I have to use this libcamify and then Python and then the name of the Python file, and then it just works fine. I can show you that, what it looks like if you don't do that, but you get an error message. It took me a while to figure that one out. Right, so let's go straight over to this, shall we? Right, so I'm just going to get into position here, and I'm going to show you now. So I just need to sort of get side on. So I've got another computer over here. Let me just get all my bits and pieces ready. Right, so if I go over there, so I've got a Raspberry Pi. Let's see if I can get that to zoom in a little bit. There we go. Maybe zoom in a bit more. Right, so I'm going to stick my hand up and then watch what happens. So there's a counter at the top of the screen there, and it's detected my left hand and my right hand. There's a bit of lag there, that's okay. And obviously it's doing a couple of frames per second. I'll just move the microphone there as well. It's just doing a couple of frames per second there, so it's not like real time, but it's pretty quick. So you can see there we've got left hand and right hand. And look at that counter at the top there. That's counting how many fingers I've got held up. So if I get rid of that hand there and I just have one finger held up, Alex is going in the background as well. So you've got 2 fingers there. It's counting all the fingers there. If I drop my hand down, are you going to do that, Alex? If you want to do the peace sign. There we go. I think I might just have to move it a little bit closer, because it's just having a bit of trouble finding that. There we go. Toot. So it says toot because it knows that the peace sign is toot. Okay, Alex, if you drop your hand down now. So I've set this so that it can detect 2 hands. You can actually say how many hands you want it to detect. You could get it to detect 20 hands if you wanted to. So if I just put my fingers down like this, we can see there that it's now saying 0 at the top. And if I do 1 finger, you'll see that it says 1. If I do 2, and it's going to say toot, because that's the gesture. It doesn't matter which orientation I do that. You can see there that it's tracking the hand quite well. If I do 3 fingers, it gets a bit tricky to do this. Oops, 3 fingers, then 4 fingers, and then I'm going to do 5. If I do 6, 7, 8, 9, it's getting a bit tricky to do that last one, and then 10, like so. And you can do combinations of these. If I put both my thumbs in, it should count 8. It says 4 there because it's counting how many fingers on one hand. I think it's my right hand that it's counting that on. Maybe it's my right hand that it's counting that on. So it doesn't matter how many fingers I'm holding on that side. It will only say 4 on the right hand. And we can have a look at the code in a second. How cool is this though? And it doesn't matter like how far away you are. You can be quite close, and it's still gonna count those. And it knows all these different landmarks on your hand, so it's pretty clever. There's Alex doing if I'm going to drop my fingers down there, you've got 3 fingers there, Alex. Try 4. There we go, and then 5. How cool is that? Right, okay, so let me jump back over to me for a second. So you can see there was a little bit of lag just in the refresh rate, but I am using VNC, which is virtual network computing, which is like a remote desktop software, and then it's having to send that over the network into my machine. So you do get a little bit of extra lag for that. It's quite good. I think you can put the frame rate on the screen as well, just to see how many you get in. But yeah, it's like 1 or 2 frames per second. It's not massive, but for what we need, this is more than enough. So let's have a look at how this actually works, shall we? Let me just go over to Visual Studio, and let me bring up the code there. Okay, so I'm in Visual Studio. Let me just zoom back for a second. Let's get it all back on the screen. Is that... There we go, that's enough. Okay, so what we've got going on here, if I just make this larger, we can see the code a little bit easier. I can zoom in a bit more within Visual Studio. So this is a simple Python program. All we're bringing in is CVZone, and I've already installed CVZone and MediaPipe to make this work. And I'm importing the hand tracking module, and then from that there's a hand detector that we're going to use. And then you also import CV2, which is the Computer Vision 2, or OpenCV you might hear it called. And then to capture the video stream, we simply do cap equals CV2.video capture, and then 0, that's the number of the camera that we're using. Now, if we don't use that libcamify, what will happen is OpenCV will think that you're trying to use a USB camera. So if you've got a USB camera that can plug into the Raspberry Pi, it'll work fine with that. If you want it to use the onboard camera, you need to use that libcamify thing that I showed earlier. Okay, so the next thing we do, there's just a couple of comments there, we can ignore that. We say detect equals hand detector, and then there's this detection con. That's usually set to 0.7 or 0.5, and then the number of hands you want it to detect, so I've just done 2 for now. You could set that to 1, and it's a little bit quicker if you do that. And then the main piece of code here, it says, so we've got this success, and then image equals cap.read, and what that happens, cap.read basically just captures the image, it does it frame by frame. It returns the image as a frame, and then it returns like a true or false in that success there. So you can then say, you know, if it was successful, do something. If it wasn't, ignore it. I've then created a thing that's called total fingers, and that was a little counter that you saw at the top of the screen, so we can detect how many fingers I'm holding up. And then we then do the detect. We pass it the hands, the image variable, which we haven't set the hands yet, and then the detector.find hands within the image then returns how many, it returns kind of an object called a hand object, so it will detect how many hands it's found there. And then we can say, oh, gesture is nothing, so we're starting out with there's no gesture, so when I was doing those like 4 or 2, that's what I'm calling gesture, so it's just a little variable for my program. And then if hands is true, so it's found more than 1 hand in the image, it'll run this piece of code. So we say hand 1 equals hand 0. So hands is an array of hands objects. We have this image list 1 equals hand 1 image list, and this lists all the 21 landmark points. We then do a bounding box around the hand, so that little green box that was round the hand, we can pass that to bbox1, and then the center point is the center point of the hand within that little rectangle. As you can see there, center of hand CXCY, and then the hand type, so is it a left hand or is it a right hand? It can store that in that hand type variable there, so hand type 1. So we've got 2 hands that we're detecting. And then fingers 1 is on our hand that we're looking at here, because it might not be the right hand that it's found first or the left hand it's found first. It depends on whichever was in the image first. It will then figure out how many fingers are up. So if we close them, they're down. If we open them, they're up, and they're simply a 0 or a 1. And what you can do, so I said total fingers is the sum of all the fingers together, and fingers 1 is an array of 1s and 0s, which are they correspond to the actual digits on your hand. So you can actually pass it, for example here, if fingers 1 equals 00011, that's the peace sign. If you do 0000001, that's the thumbs up, I think. Would have to test these out, and then if you do 0 and then 4, you'll get the 4, which is that. I mean, that would suggest that thumbs up is actually that. Let's try that out actually. Okay, and so on. So you can build out this code as you like. And then if the second hand is also detected, so if the length of hands is 2, there's 2 hands, you can basically do the exact same thing, but just rename the variable or create new variables called hand2, image list 2, bbox2, and so on. And now you can do other things as well. I found that this didn't work when I was playing with it. You can find the distance between two landmarks. So you can actually say, are the fingers closed or open? Maybe I'll actually develop that code when I want to do the peace sign thing, just to get rid of some spurious data. What else have we got? And yeah, somebody's saying there, wouldn't it be the peace sign be 01100? Have a play is what I would say with this. I didn't have a lot of time to have a play about with this part. I just wanted to essentially get that working. But I found that if I just did my counting how many fingers were actually up, it didn't matter which position they were. You could even do that, and it would do it. So you could like do that, and that would take a picture. So yeah, finger count is then the string. What we're going to do is we're going to pass that as a string. So finger count is a string of the total fingers, which is our integer. We then use this CV2 put text, which essentially just draws the text on the image. So you pass it the image, you pass it the text you want to display. So gesture is just like the count of the, sorry, that's the, whether we're tooting out or peace sign and all that kind of stuff. That's the text that's stored in gesture. You then give that a coordinates like an X and a Y. You then give it a font you want to use, and it just has this Hershey plain, which is fine. I think the next one is the font size and then the colour of the font. And then I'm not sure what the 6 is at the end. I've just left that the same. And then the second one I did was the finger count. I just moved that just to a different place, just higher up the screen. Then you do image show or IM show, and that will show the image in the little X window on the Raspberry Pi. And then wait key means just wait, don't close that window, just keep it on the screen until you press Control and C, and then it'll disappear. Then it releases all its resources and destroys all windows, which sounds really destroy all windows. It sounds really sinister there, but it isn't. So that's the program to detect hands. How simple is that? There's probably more comments in there as actual lines of text there, so it's quite a simple thing to do. So that code is on the GitHub for Bubo-2T. You can grab that if you want to. So that's the first thing. Let's go over back to I was going to look at libcamera hello actually first. Let me go over to that. So let me jump back to our Raspberry Pi. Let me get that up. And let me show you what that's all about. So if I just cancel this by just going Control and C, this is the terminal that's actually running the code there. If I do libcamera -hello, I think it is, and then I just sort of turn and wave, you'll just see a little, there's the full, there's Alex in the background. So it's just taken a single shot, and then it closes the window after like 5 seconds. So that's libcamera. It's just like a test of, does the camera actually work or not. So that was the first thing I wanted to show you on there. What else was there? So yes, we're just talking about CV Zone. So CV Zone has a great website. If you Google it, I think it's called computervision.com, something like that. If you Google CV Zone, it's the first one that comes up there, and they have loads of free courses about how to use this in Python and create some really fun projects. Some of these are aimed at children, some of them aimed at everyone else, I guess. One that really stuck out to me was sign language. So you can get it to detect which signs that you're signing based on your hand gestures. How cool is that? You can also get it to do all kinds of other things, like face detection's a really simple one. You can get it to do and plot like a grid of your face. So when your face appears, there's like a mesh of all the different parts of your face, which is amazing. And the thing I like is it just works. It just works out the box, no messing about. So I would definitely recommend you check out CV Zone and have a play with that. It's just so much fun. I'm just going to go back on there because I just want to show you again just how much fun that is. So if I jump back over to here, if I go full screen on that, and I just load up, there we go, libcamerify, Python 3, sorry, at hand. So here I am, and here's my hands. How cool is that? So I can now toot just by doing the little peace sign like that, and it'll toot out. Gonna have a play, Alex. So Alex is quite a bit away from me, about a metre or so away from me, and it's recognising Alex's hand there. It can detect all the different milestones on the hand, all the different landmarks, I should say. So, and it's quite clever. Even if you're at really odd angles, it can figure out what orientation your hand is in, which is quite clever. So really, really impressed with that. So there you go, it's saying 4. If I do peace sign, it will do toot. If I do that, it should toot as well, which is like me pointing my fingers. I think it thinks I've got 5 out there. There we go, toot, and so on. So there we go. That's so much fun. Right, let's get back over to our keynote. So yes, we had to play with the counting program. So toot-T is going to tweet images out based on if you do the gesture that we assigned to it. It'll tweet and toot. It'll toot to Mastodon. So just in case you don't already know this, when you send a message on Twitter, it's called a tweet. When you send a message on Mastodon, which is an alternative to Twitter, it's called a toot. So Bubo-2T can toot messages based on images that it captures. So it's going to capture those images, then going to tweet them out. So we can put all this together in our robot and we can tweet out pictures based on hand gestures. So again, the idea is I'll be at the Maker Central event, walking around, and people can come up, they can do the peace sign or whatever gesture we assign. It'll take a picture, it'll sort of flash its eyes to say that it's taken a picture, and they can check on Twitter and see that that picture has been taken, and it'll say something like, you know, I've met Bubo at the Maker Central event, hashtag Maker Central, something like that. So really, really fun, really simple to do. So how do we actually tweet out code? How do we tweet out messages? It's easier than you'd think. There's a little bit of setup involved, so I'm just going to get Visual Studio Code up on here, and we can have a play with this now. And we'll get it to tweet out a message as well. So let me just find the toot. Okay. So here I am in Visual Studio. I'm on toot.py. So I'm using a library that's called Tweepy. So Tweepy is a library that somebody's created just to make interacting with Twitter API a bit easier. And there's only a few things that look a bit like, ugh, what's all this stuff? You only have to do it once and then it works fine. So you need to create a secret.py, and in there you need 4 pieces of information. You need a consumer key, a consumer secret, an access token, and an access token secret. And this is like version 1, I think, of the Twitter API. The other caveat is I understand that Twitter is going to be charging for use of its API shortly. Now, I don't know whether that's included for free if you're a premium, like a blue tick user, or whether it's in addition to that. But currently, up to the 9th of February, it's free. So we need to just store them in there. They essentially just look like a load of garbled messages. They're a certain length of string long, if you like, and all 4 of them look like this. They just look like random pieces of text, and what they are is like your password and your username for accessing the app on Twitter. So as a Twitter developer, you need to go on there, create a new app. I can show you what that looks like as well. Let me just bring up the Twitter developer environment, and I can show you what that looks like because it doesn't reveal the key. So if I jump in here, so I'm on the developer portal. So if I go to here, you can see I've got a couple of monthly tweet cap usage. So I've not tweeted 2 million tweets, so that's fine. And when you create them down here, you can either create them as like a standalone app, which is what I've done here, or you can create it as like a new version 2. So you get an app ID, you get sort of authentication, you need to set that up. And it helps you do all this. If I press keys and tokens, it won't actually show you these because they're secret, but it looks like that, like a random series of text. So again, it hides the secret, so you can't actually see those. You have to actually regenerate them. It shows you it once. You have to copy it to your notepad, and then that's it. So these are the 4 pieces of information you need. You don't need the bearer token. That's for something else, but you need the API key and the secret, and the access token and the secret as well. So once you have those bits of information, we go back over to Visual Studio, you can basically just put them in a secret.py. And the other thing I do with GitHub to make sure that I don't accidentally store my secrets up into the cloud is I exclude them from GitHub. So if you do a .gitignore, you can put in there all the things that you want to exclude. So macOS has got this annoying habit of storing this .ds store, which is a bit like thumbnails.db on a Windows PC. It's just some kind of file management housekeeping thing. We don't need to store the contents of the virtual environment. We can create that new on each machine. PyC is like the compiled version of Python code, and PyCache is where all those live. So if we just add those to our .gitignore file, you can see that they end up like that, being grayed out. Okay, let's get back over to our toot. So I brought all those in. And then our main program, you can see there, this isn't very long at all. We basically just say Twitter auth keys, and we just pass a list of or a dictionary of consumer keys and the actual consumer key that we pulled in there. All of them. That handles all the authentication so that Twitter knows that you're a genuine person or a bot. We then set up the type of authentication, so we're doing OAuth, and there's a little handler for that. Again, you don't have to worry about how this works, just paste these in and it will work. And then API equals tweepy.api with the auth that we just set up there, which is that dictionary. And then the next thing we do is we can upload a test.jpg. So let me just set up a test.jpg. So here's one I prepared earlier. What I'm going to do, just going to go onto my phone, and I took a little selfie with Bubo. I'm just going to tweet that one out. So if I just airdrop that, I can't do that. Let me just set that up. I don't really want to mess about with that. Actually, I've got an image already on there, which is just called test.jpg. If I open this one up, it's just that, just a picture of Bubo before we. That's the actual fail print. That's this piece that we tried all our paint on. We'll have a look at the paint and everything in a minute. So that's what it's going to tweet out. If I go back to toot.py, so that's how we do it. We do api.media upload and then the name of the file that we want to upload. So in the final code for this, when you do a gesture, it'll just take a picture and then save that to a particular thing like picture.jpg, and then we'll do the media upload. And then the actual message, the text that we want to tweet out. So what I've done here is I pass this message here. So this says test toot from Bubo-2T, let's say live stream, so you know it's live. That /n is a way of doing a new line. So if you do like return when you're on your Twitter app on your phone, it creates like a new line. This is how you do it in text. On a text string, you do /n. Slashes are like special escape characters, they're called. That's just a way of doing a new line. And these are not the droids you're looking for. Move along. And then post result is just somewhere to store the results of if this is going to work. And then we do API update status. We pass in the status, which is the post itself, the tweet we've just created there. And the media IDs is the list of files which we've just uploaded there to include within it as well. And that's it. You don't need to do anything else. This print, the result just checks if there was any problems. I don't think result actually does anything on there, so I'm going to actually comment that out. And then this if name equals main is if you run this toot.py, you want to actually run the code that you've just created, and that's in main def. So there we go. So did I say / It's a backslash. Somebody just said there. Okay, so let me just come to here. So what I've got going on here, I'm actually connected to QB1 at the moment, which is the robot we created a couple of weeks ago. That's got a Raspberry Pi camera in it. It's got a Raspberry Pi 4 with 8 gig of RAM, so it's pretty beefy. And I'm actually logged into that using the remote connection. We've looked at that on previous episodes, so if you want to Google how to do that, you can check out the channel. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to do Python. First of all, I want to check where I am, so I want to make sure, yep, we're in the right environment. Let's just source that environment, bin and activate, and then let's just run Python toot.py. So let's check on Twitter to see if this actually does do it. So if I go to my Twitter page and I check out, let's have a see. So yeah, it's returned okay. So if I go to my profile now and I have a look, I can see that it has indeed posted that picture, and it says toot toot from Bubo-2T live stream, which is the text we just created. These are not the droids you're looking for, move along. There we go. So that's how we can tweet from Python code. It's that simple. So think about the building blocks that we've just built up there. We built a robot that's got a camera in it, that's running CV zone, that can do gesture detection. We can then get it to take a picture and then upload that picture to Twitter with some text. So let's go back over to our keynote because there's a problem there. One of the problems they have is Twitter will block duplicate tweets. So if we just have that text the same every single time we just upload different pictures, Twitter is going to go, hang on, you've already uploaded this. This is a duplicate, and it's going to actually block you from doing that. So we need to have a way of randomizing those text streams, that toot toot thing that we just created. And I was thinking about how best to do this, and I thought what we can do to make this easier for ourselves to create is let's have an opener like hey or hi or look what I've done, some kind of short piece of text, and then another piece of text which is kind of like the body of the text, and then some hashtags at the end. And then we can add them together by randomizing from the selection of that list of openers, body sections, and then the hashtags. By adding together those randomized things, we're kind of rolling the dice each time. And it means that if we have maybe 20 of each openers and 20 body text, it means that it's quite unlikely that you're going to get duplicates in there unless you run it like 1,000 times or something. So I did actually run this, put it into a CSV file to check if there's any duplicates. There was a few, so I added a few more openers, a few more bodies in there, and then it stopped having duplicates. So that works well. So let's have a see how to do this in Python. Again, very, very simple. So let's go back over to Visual Studio. And now let's have a look at the toot randomizer code. So let's scroll to the top of here and see what's going on. So we need to bring in random, which is a random number generator. And there's a thing that's called choice. And what choice will do is we'll pick from a list, just randomly, one of the elements of a list. So we just need to create a couple of lists. So I've put this into a class just to make it easier to reuse. So I'm calling this class random toots. And then the openers, I've got whoop, I've got hey, I've got look, toot, toot toot, beep bop, it's another toot, and so on. So I can build those out and put more and more in there just to make that even more random. The hashtags I've simply just put as robotics for now, just one. And I'm probably going to add to that like Maker Central, something like that when that's live. And then the messages, I've just said, here's a great pic. I just took this, smile, I took this snap, and so you get the idea. We've got quite a few of those. And then to generate the message, we simply say opener text is a choice from those openers. So it's going to randomly pick one, so maybe toot. It's then going to just store hashtags in the hashtags variable. And then the message, like a body text, is just going to pick one of these randomly as well. And then we simply return the opener text plus a new line, plus the message, plus a new line, plus the hashtags. And then we can, I basically just said, test this by generating it and replacing any of the new lines with no new line. The reason I did this as a test is if I wanted to put them in a spreadsheet, I didn't want new lines. I wanted them all in one line. So that's what that's for. Whereas if we just do generate, it will work fine. And then to test this out, I made it print to the screen 100 times just to see what that looked like. So if we now just do Python and toot randomizer, like so, it's going to print out 100 times. Now I think I actually did go back and re-edit this, and I probably haven't just synchronized my code. I can see there's some things that have changed. I added a lot more openers and a lot more body texts. But you can see there, look, it says, whoop, look who I found, hashtag robotics. I just took this picture, incoming message, I just took this, beep bop, and so on. So I'm looking there and I can't see any duplicate messages, so that looks pretty good. I mean, some of them look similar, but they're not the same. So that means that Twitter is unlikely to block our messages, particularly if there's, different ones in between. It's not going to block our text. So it's just something we needed to think about as part of building out our solution and making this thing all work together. Okay, so that's our toot randomizer. So next steps, what do we need to do? So I need to power all this. I have these nice little battery packs. This is probably going to be fine for the RGB LEDs. The servos currently are drawing quite a lot of power. I think they're drawing about an amp of power. And that's because when it's opening up the eyelids, the pivot point where the eye is opening from is a bit too close to the center of the eye. It needs to be further up to give it more leverage, and it won't require as much power to therefore open it. So there's a bit of friction going on. There's paint that's been applied that's created a bit of friction as well, and all these things added together mean that the servo's really having to sort of pull and yank these eyelids open and close. We'll have a look at it in a second, don't worry. So they're a little bit stiff. We can make that better. And then the next thing is to assemble. Let me just grab this one because it's just a hand. This isn't the one I'll be using, but this is an Arducam. But these are the camera modules. I'm going to put this camera module behind one of the NeoPixel rings like so. That will be in the eye, and then that will go into the back of the robot's head on a ribbon. So we can see what the robot sees, which will be pretty cool. Be pretty cool to see that open and close as well. And we need to stitch all that code together that I've just shown you. So all the building blocks are there. It's going to be quite trivial, I would say, to stitch that together. It will work. The complexity will be getting the eye piece to stick. I've just not built that out yet. So there we go. So is there anything else I wanted to cover off on there? Not only just to say, if you like what I do and you want to help me grow the channel even more, make sure you give this video a like. Make sure you drop me a comment as well. Let me know what you think about this. Is this something that you'd be interested in? And also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you know, what are you doing? Subscribe right away. And I go live every single Sunday at 7 o'clock GMT, every single Sunday. So please make sure you, if you can, hang out with me and say hello. It's always fun to have people on the chat. And yeah, that's 7 o'clock GMT. And if you want to learn some MicroPython or some robotics or ROS or how to build that eye mechanism that we looked at last week, I've created a series of courses. So you can go over to kevsrobots.com/learn and you can look at all these different courses for free and have a play with them. They're really quite fun to do. I'll show you one now actually. We just load up Kev's Robots. And I'll show you just how easy this is to do. So if I just go over to kevsrobots.com, and the irony that I get Pimroni adverts on my site. So if I click on the learn there, and I click on the MicroPython basics one, for example. So you can see here, this is how the learning thing works. There's no kind of sign up required. It just jumps straight into the content. You've got the navigation pane on the left-hand side here, and then you've got like the kind of lesson or the course material. And then you've got these sort of notes and other sides. You click next and it'll go to the next page, and you'll see there the percentage complete will increase as you go through the course. And you can just jump around if you want to as well. And you can see there, this is what the text looks like, the code. This is what the other messages look like for like running it on Bash, and then these sort of screenshots that talk you through step by step. So there's a number of courses that I've put on there. That one is the Learn ROS with me, which is the robot operating system. And there's quite a few things there at how to do that. So like I said, there's no sign up required. You just jump straight in, and it's as easy as that. Okay, let me get back to my keynote. So if you want to try that, that's just at kevsrobots.com/learn. And if you're not on Discord, you can join me on Discord just by going to kevsrobots.com/Discord. I've made this very straightforward. We've got a growing community on Discord of people who are very similar to you. They like to look at robotics, Raspberry Pis, ESP32s, MicroPython, Python, all that good stuff. Building robots, of course, as well. And if you've not already followed me on social media, I'm at Kevin McAleer 6 on TikTok. Why not? I'm Kevin McAleer on Instagram, and I post a lot of Instagram pictures. I'm on at KevsMac on Twitter, and also on Mastodon at kevsmac@mastodon.social. So if you're not following me on those social media channels, make sure you follow me on there too, because I'm trying to grow myself on all the different platforms. It just really helps with that. And if you want to support the show, you can do this in a number of different ways. You can do a super thanks. Let me make sure we've got that switched on as well. So we have that button there pressed. And yeah, if you want to help support the show, you can do a super thanks. You can do a super chat if you're watching live now and you want to get your name on the screen. You can do a super chat. That's nice and easy to do. And if you want to buy me a coffee, you should go to kevsrobots.com/coffee. There's the information there to help with that. And finally, if you want to join the YouTube program, the membership, you can do that too. That's the price of a coffee a month, and it really just helps me support the channel. Means I can buy all these expensive parts for the robots and carry on. They're not that expensive, Jenny. We can do all these expensive parts for the robots and build more and more robots each week. Okay, I think that's everything on there. I want to show you the robot itself now, because we've not actually looked at it. So, oh no, of course, we need to do our supporters first. So I think the person that joined at the very beginning of the stream, you'll not be included on here yet, because I didn't have time to put that together. Oh, Dale joined as well. Fantastic. So yeah, you'll get your name on there, Dale, next week. So we ran out of time to update those today. So you can see there we've got Dale, of course, as our new member. We have Tom, we have Shemi, we have Steve Phillips as well. Hey Steve, I know you're on the live stream today. And we've got all these people on the on this side over here. So we've got Sadiq, we've got Jeff, we've got WP Body, Fred, Bill, Dale, we've got Hans from Cheerlights, we have Michael, we have Jose, we've got Johan, we have Jean-Paul, and we have Tom as well. And then our supporter side, which is over here, I have to imagine this is like physically here. So we've got Justine, we've got Roland, we've got Zogaldia, we've got Bill P, we have Mark, David, Shumi, Derek, RGS, Roland again, we have Bill, and we went through the members at the beginning. So thank you so much to all those people who are helping out, support the channel. It does make all the difference. It means we can go out and buy all the paints and everything that we need to make these things happen. Right, okay, so that's all the slides. I want to go back now and show you the actual robot itself. So here it is. I've got the camera quite close in today so we can see what's going on here. So there's a number of different things I want to show you. First of all, I just want to show you what Bubo looks like. So I've got some screws around the edge of this sort of 5 points. I've also put this little area here where I can make a little plaque. I've not actually painted this plaque up yet, but that's going to sort of go into there, and it just says Bubo-2T like that. It's going to be nice and silver like, similar to this kind of finish. And you can see there that the finish to this, what we've actually done is we've painted this black, we put a primer on, painted it black, and then we've put on this little rub-on gold stuff. It's really nice. It's called Pearl, and by sort of hand rubbing this on here, you've got this sort of metallic finish. It makes it look like it's actually a piece of metal. You can see there we've got these sort of rivet effects. There are some real screws here and there. The beak, for example, has got a nice bolt through it there. And he's currently just sat on his base. His base isn't actually attached currently, so I can show you that there. I don't want to tip it up too much because the eyes are not actually fastened in yet. They're literally just sat on there. And what I've also got hooked up is I've got a little controller here. You can just see behind. This is a little servo tester. So you plug in the servos you want to test. You apply power. So I've got my desk power supply, which if I grab this camera here, and I just show you on, is it that one? There we go. It's a bit of a mess. You can see we just have this power supply just hiding behind this steampunk thing. I'm going to move that out of the way actually. I do need to tidy the desk. So this is the power supply that I'll be using to provide power. If I just flick that on, you can see there the number of amps that's drawing, the number of volts. So it's 4.3 volts and 0.2 amps currently. And if I just move that around there, go back to the overhead because it's like a nicer shot. Let's just move this. So be able to see the beak move. Now if I press the button on here, it'll cycle through all the different modes. So I'm yelling into the microphone there. There we go. So this is just going backwards and forwards. You can see that one of the servos is open, one of them is closed. That's just how the servos were laid out. And you can see the little beak there. That's one of my favourite bits of this, is opening and closing. And currently the eyes are not actually plugged in either. So let me just plug the eyes in. So I've got these eyes just behind. You can just see the green just behind there. So these are going to be inside the actual owl's eyes. Can you hear that as well? It's quite loud. So it sounds quite loud. And you can just see there the colour of these RGB LEDs are just sort of slightly changing. If I make it, if I put it there, you can probably see the reflection easier than... so that's just going to cycle around a few different colours. We've got green there, looks really good. Like so. And I think Jenny's just brought in the last piece of this as well. So I'm just going to go back to my main camera. Just going to turn the power off on there for a second. So this is the final piece. Thank you there, Alex. So there we go. So this is the base piece. So I've built the robot in a number of different parts. So there's the face part, there's the back of the head. They're sort of two separate parts. Then there's a base piece that he will sit on. I think I'll call that the body. And then there's this sort of bottom piece. And what we've done there is we've sprayed this black. We've put on this this gold sort of rubbed on pearl effect. And there's 4 screw holes for that to attach to the bottom as well. So if I just grab that. And do this without destroying everything. There. Let me grab it and show you. Let me just show you how big this is. So the eyes are not actually screwed in yet, so I just need to be careful I don't tip that, and this bottom section isn't attached yet either. So I can take that out there. I'll show you the main robot in a second. So this bottom piece has got this this piece that's basically just going to screw into place. And you can see there's these 4 screw holes. And the reason I've done that is because once I've attached this piece I might want to get at the electronics and stuff, and I've got a hole at the back for the wires to come out, so power and so on, because I might decide that I want external power rather than putting all the power inside. I don't think this power will last a number of hours. It might be like 2 hours and the batteries will go flat. I do have some quite large power supplies, battery power supplies, so we can experiment with those to see how long they last. Right, so let me just grab this and show you what this looks like. Let me show you a bit closer up there. So you can see there, this is what Bubo is currently looking like. And he's got his little beak just there as well. So if I move that servo, you can see that open and close. And I can simply unscrew these 5 screws to get inside the robot, to get at all the different parts. So the eyes which are inside, we looked at one of those last week on the show. We basically designed one of those from scratch in Fusion 360, and I'd say this has probably taken about 2 weeks on and off, doing various different things. One of the things that's taken the time to do is spraying these black, spraying the primer on, waiting, spraying them black, waiting, and then applying the finish to them as well. So that's taken quite a while. The actual pieces themselves, so the head piece, there was 3 attempts. So the first attempt was actually this piece here. We basically just tried out to see if we could get the paint to look correct on this. So this is why this looks sort of half finished but half only printed. And what happened there, the story was, as I showed in the midweek video, we had an electrician come to do put some power sockets on another part of the house, and he knocked the power off, and that meant that my 3D printer stopped mid-print. It just got and then stopped, which meant that this had got through about 24 hours, 25 hours worth of printing, and then it stopped. So we had to start that all over again. So I started on this second print, and something went wrong with the supports on this second print, because it hadn't adhered to the bed properly. So I had to sort of stop that and then start it for a third time. And the third time is the piece that you can now see on the robot. So there's probably about a week's worth of printing here. That front piece, that took 2 days to print. The back piece was another 2 days, and then the eye pieces, they print in a couple of hours, maybe about 2 hours. And then there's like the eye base plate and little arms, and they just take a little bit of extra time as well. So this one only took this little plate here, which is the name tag, that's going to be all silvered up. You can't really see that because all the bright lights. If I do that, you can see there that it just says Bubo-2T. The sort of studio lights are making that very, very bright. So yes, that took a while to do. So there's quite a lot. It doesn't actually take that much filament to print, because it's and these are quite light as well. And it's just got 3 servos in it and the NeoPixel. So the actual bill of materials isn't too extensive. I have written this up on kevsrobots.com. So if I go over to Kev's Robots and just go to the latest blog article about that, I always write up these things. So I'll put links to the failed video, this video you're watching now, and how to design the eye mechanism, the inspiration behind it, and then the bill of materials. So I was able to get my hands on a Raspberry Pi first time without any messing about. I just went to pimroni.com, and they had a number of 2 gig Raspberry Pi 4s in the kits. So you get the power supply, you get an SD card, and I think, what else do you get on there? That might be it in the Raspberry Pi itself. So that was about £80. The Pico, they're about £6.30. I bought a number of these when they were really cheap, about £4. So yeah, they were really cheap to buy. The servos themselves, they weren't cheap, but they were really good quality. They don't burn out, and they're pretty strong as well. So these are metal ones, DS929s are my favourite ones. I've got a whole box of M2 and M3 screws. I'm not going to tip this up because it will go absolutely everywhere, but basically that entire box is about £10, I think, from Amazon. And it's got a mixture of different lengths, from like very, very small to very, very long ones, and the camera module itself as well. So I bought a number of these. I've got the no IR, the Noir, the wide, the standard ones, and I've got basically 2 of each of them. So these are great. Highly recommend them. You saw the quality of that today. So yeah, that's the sort of bill of materials. So it's probably just over, what, £140, something like that. Maybe maybe touching 150 if you include the 3D printing filament on there. And the STL files is quite a few of them because obviously there's quite a few bits and pieces. So the face piece is the front, the back piece is the back of the head, the body is this piece here. Then there is the bottom piece, called the bottom piece. The base mirror and the base are the things that the eye, it's like the eye holder. It's the thing that holds all the eye mechanism together. The eye piece is a piece you've probably not seen yet, and that's kind of like a disc with a little holder on, and that goes inside that in the eye, and that's what's going to hold the camera module and the NeoPixel ring. I probably need to do some work on that, so that's not quite there yet. And then we have the lower arm and the upper arm. They are for the eye mechanism. They're the things that sort of pull back. These are the eyelids, the upper and lower eyelids, and then the mouth and the mouth arm. That's the sort of beak, the bottom beak piece. The plaque is that little piece that you've just seen now, that tiny little piece there. And that's it. And then there's a couple of images just as I was building this. As you can see there, that's the NeoPixel ring before I started soldering things up. And I was just test fitting to see, would this open and close with that in there? There should be at least 1 millimeter round clearance around there, which is just what we need for the wires as well. You can also see there that there's a test fitting of that first eye thing. There's the eye mechanism. There's the fail print. Now this is something that happened on the back piece. So it started printing these little tree structures. So it prints like a circle, and then it sort of does like a vase effect. It's like a very thin single layer round, and it gets bigger and bigger, and it fell over. As the head was coming past, it sort of nudged it, and the higher it got, the more that leverage meant that this piece here was the weak point, and it basically just fell over and snapped off. And I had sort of Spaghetti City on here. However, the spaghetti started, as you can see, around about here, where you've got that bit of markings there. And it didn't matter too much, because I knew that you've got about 45 degrees worth of overhang before it starts becoming a problem. It's only really this very top bit where you'd need any of this support structure. And as the spaghetti was sort of forming there, when it moved across, it created a bridge of its own. You can see some of these bridge pieces there. So the bridges over time, over layers, built up and meant that it could actually print the rest of the support structure on top. And the support structure isn't load bearing, it's more just to make sure that the thing doesn't collapse in on itself. And it worked out fine in the end. So the actual finished piece, you can't see that there's any problem at all. And these were all in the inside, so I basically just pulled off this, and the print was a good one. You'll also see here there is this sort of bar between one side and the other, and that's just to give it some rigidity, and it really does make a difference. So you can see on this piece here, if I force that together, it's not buckling or anything, it's really, really thick. And that shape you can see there is the back piece, and this is the front, and they go together a bit like a jigsaw. So there's these like little nodules that stick out, and they fit together really perfectly. It's quite a satisfying thing to put together. And then I've got some captive nuts on there as well. So when I want to attach the bottom section, and there's probably going to be some holders in there for the Raspberry Pi 4 as well, and all the electronics just inside. So I just need to build them out. And you can do that after the fact. You don't need to include any extra bits and pieces in there. So that was just something I wanted to include on the gallery of things in there. You can see there I'm working away on the desk, just applying the colour. And if anybody's interested in what kind of paints we use for this, we use these Maston paints, but I think you can use pretty much any. It's fine. So we apply a primer, like a clear primer. We then apply this matte black, and then we use this pearl acrylic. This is what, PBO. Yeah, this worked really, really fine. You just sort of put it on. It's water-based, so if you sort of make a mistake, you can literally just erase that. It's very, very simple to do. And yeah, lots of fun doing that. I think Jenny's sick of it now, but she, we've been watching Wicked Makers, and they do all kinds of like Halloween builds, and their channel is particularly focused on the lead up to Halloween. They probably get most of their views then. But we watch them all year round as they do all different types of builds. And they typically buy like a Halloween prop, and they will redo it in their own way, applying their own artistic techniques. So we learnt this technique of painting something black, matte black like this. You can see there it looks completely matte black. And then applying this sort of pearlescent thing. And you actually want all the imperfections and all the sort of scratches and things, because it makes it look like real metal. It looks like it's been through the walls, and that's exactly what we're going for with Bubo. So you can see there, if I just sort of hold this a bit closer, you can see there the effect that we're going for. We're quite pleased with that. And the effect's even been applied to the eyes as well, and the beak. So there you go, that's Bubo. And the very bottom piece, I was actually trying to design feathers when I designed this. Let me just hide my face there. There we go, so it'll zoom in a bit more. So these were intended to be sort of feathers, and I was going to have like rows and rows of them, but when I just left one row, I thought actually I quite like the look of that. It looks like some kind of like Star Wars effect, like a droid or something, so quite happy with how that looks. And you can see there, this has got the black primer on the inside because you don't really see that. And then when I attach the bottom piece with the 4 screws, that will complete the robot build from a physical structure anyway. So yeah, that's everything I've got for you today. I think I've covered everything if I wanted to. This is the point in the video. If you're watching this on replay, I'll say thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you next time.